Hey there everyone, welcome back to Adam's Kitchen. So this week on the menu, we're going to be making pumpkin soup. Now, I'm going to be using a kabocha, which is a Japanese squash, but feel free to use whatever pumpkin that you find that you like the best. So let's get started by assembling the ingredients, which there are not many of. So I'll begin with is to remove the seeds, which is not too difficult. Just use a spoon and you can basically just scrape it out and scrape the sides. If you ever carved a pumpkin, you've probably done this quite a bit, and maybe using a larger spoon would make things easier, but it came out pretty well, pretty easily. And what you can do is you can keep the seeds and kind of separate them and dry them a little bit, then bake them and make a nice snack. Now, I've already carved one, and here you'll see I'm trying to carve the second one, but it's a very dense and very hard squash, so it takes a little bit more effort. And as one of my previous viewers said, I need to sharpen my knives, and actually, surprisingly, I did this previous weekend, but as you can see, looks like I have to sharpen them again, and so much effort, the camera's trying to run away, I guess, so I gotta get the camera back. So just carve off the skin and try to be careful because, like I said, it's really difficult and tough skin. But you don't have to. There are times where I keep the skin on just to give a little bit more, I don't know, fiber or nutrition. I'm not sure if it does add more nutrition or fiber to it, but sometimes I keep the skin on. In this case, I cut it off because the skin had like a lot of kind of like growth, like nothing bad, just natural growth, and just didn't look that appealing or appetizing. So in this case, I'm cutting off all the skin. All right, once that's done, we can get on to the more easier part. And if there's still a little bit greenness on it, that's fine. You won't even taste it. You won't even notice it once it's all cooked and blended. And once again, the camera's trying to escape, but fortunately, we're done. So here we're just cutting up the pumpkin. Now, I try to cut the pumpkin as small as possible. The reason why is, one, of course, it's going to cook much faster. But also, if you want to run it through a blender, of course, that's what I'm going to be doing, but you don't have to. But if you run it through a blender, you get a much, much smoother soup. But if you don't, if you choose to not use a blender, you could just use like a strong whisk. And you could just kind of mash it down. Or you could use a potato masher for that. And you still get like a really nice consistency, but it'll be a little bit more chunkier. Now, if you want a chunky soup, then I suggest you do what I did, do it that way, and just kind of mash it down using the potato masher. Now, in this next part, just add some oil to the pan. I'm using kind of like a wok type pan, but you could use a soup pot if you like. Now, you might notice that you didn't see me pouring in the pumpkin. That's because when I originally poured in the pumpkin, the color and the light was completely off. The pumpkin looked all bright yellow and white. It's cool looking, but it doesn't look too appealing, appetizing. So just add some oil and carefully add the pumpkin to the pan and just let it cook down a little bit. Now, because this kabocha is really a really dense and really hard squash, it's going to take a little bit more time to kind of break down. So just let it cook over medium heat and just give it a little stir every once in a while just to make sure that it's not sticking or burning on the bottom. Because kabocha does have some sugar to it, as most pumpkins do, and the sugar will tend to burn or cause it to stick to the bottom of the pan. So after maybe 5 or 10 minutes of cooking and stirring around a little bit, you can see some brown marks where the sugar kind of stuck to the bottom. But you also can see around the edge it's become kind of softer, and that's telling us that it's breaking down, it's becoming more soft in the center as well. So again, just keep it moving and keep cooking it down a little bit more. And it's at this point we'll start to add some of our seasonings. In this case, you could add salt and pepper if you like. And in this case, we'll start with the butter. It's to kind of deglaze the bottom of the pan and help it become a little bit more, get a little bit of a nutty kind of flavor to it by using the butter and mixing it in with the pumpkin. So once the butter's added, you could add more, you could add less, don't even have to use butter, you could just add some more olive oil if you like. In this case, I think the butter really kind of gives it a little bit more of a nice, like, smoother texture. And also the butter helps to release the flavors from the bottom of the pan as well. So just mix it around a little bit and get all the stuff off the bottom of the pan as possible. And as you can see it's becoming much more softer. And here we'll add the bouillon. I've already smashed and broken it all up. So add the bouillon, then we'll add some hot water. Don't have to add it all at once if you don't want to. You can just want to, depends, and again, this comes down to how thick or how what kind of consistency you want with the soup. Now in this case, I want a little bit more of a thicker soup, so I added just 1 cup of water. And here is the 1 cup of heavy cream. And if you don't want to use heavy cream, you could use regular milk. In this case, I usually don't have heavy cream because it's pretty expensive here in Japan. I usually use milk. But in this case, I did have it, so I was using it. Now, I had already cooked some onions down using some butter and some garlic and the olive oil. But here I'm showing you, I'm making another batch. This is another half of an onion. And this is for my personal one. This is going to be the spicy version. So just like any other recipe I've shown you, just cut the onion as thin as possible because we're going to be running it through a food processor, or maybe not. Maybe we can run it through a potato masher again, make it, more of a chunky soup. But in this case, I made the onions, I cut them as thin as possible to cook them down a little bit faster. So once they become a little bit more translucent, we'll start to add the other ingredients, which will be the garlic and the chili flakes. So again, this is maybe about 3 garlic cloves, minced. But if you want to add more, if you want to add less, or you can take it out altogether. If you're not a big fan of garlic, you could take out the garlic. Maybe add some more onion, or maybe change the garlic for a shallot. As with most of the recipes I show you, or I make for you, I really want you guys to get creative with it. Try adding your own ideas. Try adding different ingredients. Like for this recipe, why not substitute half the pumpkin for maybe a sweet potato? I think those two flavors would go really well together. And here are the chili flakes. And again, you could change the chili flakes for maybe something else. Sorry, I can't really think of any other alternative to chili flakes, but maybe you can. And if you can think of a different idea from chili flakes, please let me know in the comment section below. And I like to, maybe give it a try myself next time. I make this recipe a lot, especially during the winter season, because kabocha is very, very popular in the winter season. So it's very easy to find. It's usually it's pretty cheap too. Okay, so you can see that I've already transferred the soup to the blender, and we have the non-spicy onions and also the spicy version. I'm just going to process the soup to the consistency I want, but unfortunately my blender's kind of cheap and it keeps turning itself off, so I have to reach underneath and press the reset button. But no problem, it got the job done. So I just process it to the consistency I want, which is more of a kind of a thinner soup, but still a little bit thick. And what I'll do now is I'll add the onions to it, and I'll run it again to kind of incorporate that and kind of blend it in as well. Now this isn't all the soup. I also have some more on the side that I'm going to use for the spicy one, but just for now it's the same process as what I'm doing here. And that's pretty much the consistency I'm going for. If you want it thinner, add some more milk or some more water. If you want it thicker, don't add as much when you first initially pour in. So there we have it, a kabocha pumpkin soup. I hope you've enjoyed this, and I really hope that you give this a try. If you can, like I said, if you can't find kabocha, then try the next best thing. I think acorn squash would be a pretty good comparison. So I hope you've enjoyed this, and if you could please like and subscribe and support this channel by sharing it with all your friends and family. Alright everybody, thanks for watching. See you next week.